The reports came in one by one, each carrying news of victory, but also loss. The strike teams had succeeded in destroying the Xoreth nests across multiple planets, crippling their numbers and halting their spread for now. But the cost had been devastating. Out of the original teams sent out, only a handful returned intact. Many fighters were gone forever, their names added to the growing list of those who had given everything to protect humanity. Back on Earth, Liam stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, the salty breeze brushing against his face. The war was over for now, but he didn't feel like celebrating. Maria and Elena joined him, their expressions somber. Connor was in a hospital bed recovering from his injuries, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would stay with him for life. Hiroshi's sacrifice weighed heavily on all of them, a reminder of the price they had paid. "We did what we set out to do," Elena said softly, breaking the silence. "The colonies are safe. For now." Maria nodded, her arms crossed tightly against the chill. "But for how long? The Xoreth aren't gone. They're just waiting." Liam stared at the horizon, where the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. "We can't let our guard down. Not ever. This fight isn't over. It might never be. But as long as we stand together, we have a chance." Elena pulled out a small tablet, displaying updates from around the world. Governments that had once been divided were now working together, pooling resources and knowledge to prepare for future threats. New technologies were being developed, stronger defenses built, and training programs expanded. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, and instead of crumbling, it had united. "It's not perfect," Maria admitted, glancing at the screen. "But it's something. Maybe this is what Hiroshi gave his life for, not just stopping the Xoreth, but bringing us closer together." Liam smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd shown in weeks. He'd be proud. As night fell, the three of them remained on the cliff, watching the stars appear one by one. Each tiny speck of light reminded them of the vastness of the universe and the countless dangers lurking beyond. But they also represented hope, hope that humanity could endure, adapt, and thrive, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Days later, Liam visited Connor in the hospital. The Irishman was propped up in bed, his leg wrapped in bandages, but his spirit unbroken. "You look like hell," Liam joked, pulling up a chair. "Thanks," Connor replied with a grin. "You're not exactly a picture of health yourself." They shared a laugh, the kind that comes after surviving something unimaginable. For a moment, the weight of everything they'd been through seemed lighter. "What happens next?" Connor asked, his tone turning serious. "We keep fighting," Liam answered, "not just against the Xoreth, but against anything else out there trying to take us down. We've proven we can work together. That's our greatest weapon." Word of their efforts spread quickly, inspiring others to step up. People from all walks of life began volunteering to train as Deathworld warriors, ready to defend Earth and its colonies. Schools taught lessons about unity and resilience, using the team's story as an example of what humanity could achieve when it stood as one. Months passed, and though the galaxy remained dangerous, humanity faced it with newfound strength. The sacrifices made during the war were never forgotten. Memorials were built, honoring those who had fallen. Hiroshi's name was etched into stone alongside countless others, a testament to his bravery and selflessness. One evening, Liam returned to the cliff where it had all begun for him, the place where he had decided to rejoin the fight. He stood there alone, the wind whipping around him. In his hand, he held a small medal engraved with the words asterisk for Earth asterisk. It wasn't much, but it symbolized everything they had fought for. As he looked out at the endless expanse of stars, Liam whispered a silent promise. To Hiroshi, to Connor, to everyone who had believed in him. "We'll keep going," he said, "no matter what." And with that, he turned and walked away, ready to face whatever came next. The strike teams launched simultaneously, each ship hurtling toward its designated target. The plan was simple but perilous. Destroy the Xoreth nests scattered across multiple planets before the creatures could adapt again. For Liam and his team, their destination was a barren desert world known as Zeta 4, home to one of the largest breeding grounds ever recorded. As they descended through the planet's thin atmosphere, the landscape below stretched endlessly. Dunes of golden sand interrupted only by jagged rock formations. "This place is crawling with them," Maria said, her voice tense as she monitored the ship's scanners. Dozens of red blips moved across the screen, clustered around a massive structure in the distance. It looked like a fortress carved from bone, its spires twisting unnaturally toward the sky. "Stay sharp," Liam ordered, gripping his weapon tightly. "We hit hard and fast. No delays." The ship landed on the outskirts of the nest, hidden behind a ridge of rocks. The team disembarked quickly, their boots sinking slightly into the soft sand. The heat was oppressive, even through their armor, and the air smelled faintly of sulfur. They moved cautiously, sticking close to the shadows cast by the towering rocks. As they approached the nest, the ground trembled beneath their feet. From the entrance of the structure emerged a swarm of Xoreth, their grotesque forms shimmering in the harsh sunlight. Their claws clicked together as they advanced, their glowing eyes locked onto the intruders. "Here we go," Connor muttered, pulling out a pair of grenades. He hurled them toward the advancing horde, creating twin explosions that sent chunks of alien flesh flying. But for every creature they killed, two more seemed to take its place. Maria dropped to one knee, firing precise shots that took down several Xoreth at once. Her rifle clicked empty, and she cursed under her breath as she reloaded. "We can't keep this up forever." Elena sprinted toward the nest, clutching a device designed to destabilize the structure from within. "Cover me," she shouted, dodging past a Xoreth that lunged at her. Liam and Connor fought side by side, holding the line as Elena made her way inside. The battle was chaotic, the screeches of the Xoreth mixing with the roar of gunfire and explosions. Every step felt like a gamble, every second a race against time. Inside the nest, Elena navigated through narrow tunnels, filled with pulsating organic material. The walls oozed a thick, acidic substance that burned her gloves when she touched them accidentally. She ignored the pain, focusing on reaching the central chamber where the eggs were stored. When she finally arrived, she planted the destabilizer and activated it. A low hum filled the air as the device began its countdown. Outside, the team fought desperately to hold their ground. Connor screamed in pain as a Xoreth slashed at his leg, leaving a deep gash. Maria pulled him back, firing wildly to create some distance. "We need to fall back," she yelled. "Now." Liam hesitated, glancing toward the entrance of the nest. Just then, Elena emerged, running as fast as she could. "It's done," she shouted. "Let's move." The team turned and ran, pursued by a wave of enraged Xoreth. They reached the ship just as the destabilizer detonated, sending shockwaves rippling through the nest. The ground split open, swallowing the structure whole as flames erupted into the sky. The Xoreth screeched in agony, collapsing as their connection to the nest was severed. Panting heavily, the team climbed aboard the ship and lifted off, watching as the nest collapsed into ruin below them. Victory was theirs, but it came at a cost. Connor's wound was severe, and his face was pale with pain. Maria tended to him as best she could, but they all knew he wouldn't last long without proper medical care. As the ship entered orbit, Liam stared out the viewport, his heart heavy. They had succeeded, but the price had been high, too high, and yet there was no time to rest. Other teams were still fighting, and the war was far from over. "We did what we had to do," Elena said quietly, breaking the silence. "But the real fight is just beginning." Liam nodded, his jaw tight. "Then we keep going. Until it's done." The Eclipse soared through the void of space, its engines humming softly as it carried the battered team away from Delta 12. The victory over the hive mind had come at a cost, and the weight of Hiroshi's sacrifice hung heavily in the air. No one spoke much during the journey back to Earth. Each person dealt with their grief in their own way. Maria cleaned her rifle obsessively. Connor tinkered with his explosives without cracking jokes, and Alina stared out the viewport, lost in thought. Liam sat alone in the ship's small mess hall, nursing a cup of lukewarm coffee. He replayed the events on Delta 12 in his mind, wishing he could have done something, anything, to save Hiroshi. But there was no changing what had happened. All they could do now was honor his memory by finishing the mission. When they finally reached Earth, the team was greeted not with cheers but with somber faces. News of Hiroshi's death had spread quickly, and representatives from his home nation stood ready to pay their respects. Liam approached them first, bowing deeply. He was brave, Liam said simply. We wouldn't have made it without him. The words felt hollow, but they were true. Hiroshi's courage had given them a fighting chance against the Xoreth, and his loss reminded them all of how fragile life really was. Once the formalities were over, the remaining members of the team gathered in a secure briefing room beneath the Rockies. This time, instead of holographic maps or data streams, the walls displayed live footage of the galaxy. Entire sectors were marked in red. Colonies under attack, planets overrun by Xoreth spores, and systems completely abandoned. The scale of the threat was staggering. We destroyed the hive mind, Alina began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched into her face. But the Xoreth are still out there. They're adapting faster than we can keep up. If we don't act soon, humanity will lose this war. Maria leaned forward, her sharp eyes scanning the map. So what's the plan? Hit every colony one by one. That'll take too long. Connor shook his head. Nah, we need something bigger, something that hits them where it hurts. Liam frowned, considering their options. We hit their nests. All of them. At once. Elena nodded slowly. It's risky, but it might work. If we can destroy their breeding grounds across multiple planets, we could cripple their numbers. It won't end the threat completely, but it'll buy us time to regroup and find a permanent solution. Time isn't exactly on our side, Maria muttered, crossing her arms. Every day we wait, the Xoreth grows stronger. That's why we move fast, Liam said firmly. We split into teams, each targeting a different nest. We strike hard, fast, and coordinated. No delays, no second chances. The others exchanged uneasy glances. Splitting up meant risking their lives even further, but none of them argued. They knew what was at stake. Over the next few days, the team prepared for their final assault. Supplies were loaded onto smaller ships designed for stealth and speed. Weapons were upgraded, armor reinforced, and plans meticulously reviewed. Messages poured in from leaders across Earth, thanking them for their bravery and urging them to succeed. For the first time, the nations of the world truly seemed united, not just in words but in action. On the eve of their departure, Liam found himself standing outside the base, staring up at the stars. Connor joined him, holding 2 cans of energy drink. Figured you could use this, he said, handing one to Liam. Thanks, Liam replied, cracking it open. The silence stretched between them, neither man needing to say what they were thinking. Finally, Connor broke the quiet. Hiroshi believed in this mission. In us. I'm not letting that go to waste. Me neither, Liam said, his voice firm. Tomorrow, we finish what we started. The next morning, the team boarded their ships, each heading toward a different target. As the countdown began, Liam closed his eyes, remembering the faces of those who had fought alongside him. The ones who had fallen, and the ones still standing. When the engines roared to life, he opened his eyes, resolve burning within him. This was it, their last stand. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, or die trying. The ruins loomed ahead, their jagged edges cutting through the storm like broken teeth. The team moved carefully, their breath fogging up the inside of their helmets as the biting wind howled around them. Every step was a battle against the ice and snow, but they pressed on, driven by the faint hum growing louder with each passing moment. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate in their bones, unnatural and relentless. As they reached the entrance to the ruins, Liam held up a hand, signaling for the group to stop. He scanned the area, his weapon ready. "Something's off," he muttered. "Too quiet." Alina nodded, her eyes darting to the shadows. "The Xorath know we're here. They're waiting." Hiroshi stepped forward, his katana gleaming faintly in the dim light. "Then we make them regret it." With no other choice, the team entered the ruins. Inside, the air was colder, if possible, and the walls were covered in thick layers of frost. Strange symbols etched into the stone glowed faintly, pulsating in time with the hum. The deeper they went, the stronger the vibrations became, making it hard to think clearly. "This place feels alive," Maria whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Like it's watching us." "It probably is," Connor replied, gripping his explosives tighter. "Let's just hope it doesn't bite back." They moved through narrow corridors, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The hum grew deafening, and soon they came upon a massive chamber at the heart of the ruins. In the center stood an enormous organic structure, pulsating, writhing, and glowing with an eerie light. Tendrils of flesh-like material stretched across the ceiling and walls, connecting everything to the central mass. "That's it," Alina said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The hive mind." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. From the shadows emerged dozens of Xorath, larger and more grotesque than any they'd faced before. Their bodies were fused with icy spikes, and their movements were unnervingly fast despite the freezing temperatures. "Take cover," Liam shouted, diving behind a chunk of fallen debris. Maria dropped to one knee, firing precise shots that took down several Xorath, but more kept coming. Hiroshi darted between the creatures, his blade slicing through their limbs with deadly precision. Connor hurled an explosive, creating a fiery blast that sent chunks of ice and alien flesh flying. But the swarm didn't stop. Alina scrambled toward the hive mind, pulling out a device designed to disrupt its connection to the Xorath. "I need time," she yelled over the chaos. Liam and Hiroshi fought side by side, holding the line as the creatures closed in. One particularly large Xorath lunged at Hiroshi, knocking him to the ground. Its claws slashed at his armor, leaving deep gashes. Without hesitation, Hiroshi drove his katana into the creature's chest, killing it, but not before another Xorath grabbed him from behind. "Hiroshi," Connor shouted, rushing to help. But Hiroshi pushed him away. "Go, protect Alina." With a final nod, Hiroshi turned back to the swarm, drawing his secondary blade. "For Earth," he whispered, charging into the mass of enemies. His movements were a blur as he cut down Xorath after Xorath, giving the others precious seconds to complete their mission. Tears welled in Maria's eyes as she watched him disappear under the horde, but she forced herself to focus, picking off more Xorath with her rifle. Meanwhile, Alina reached the base of the hive mind and activated the disruptor. A high-pitched screech filled the chamber, causing the Xorath to stagger and collapse. "It's working," Alina shouted, her hands trembling as she adjusted the device. The remaining Xorath turned their attention to her, their glowing eyes locked onto her position. Liam sprinted toward her, tackling one of the creatures out of the way just as it lunged. Together, they held their ground until the disruptor finished its cycle. The hive mind let out a final ear-splitting scream before collapsing into itself, the glowing tendrils retracting and fading. The surviving Xorath froze, their bodies going limp as the connection to their master was severed. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped, their faces pale and their bodies battered. Hiroshi was gone, his sacrifice allowing them to succeed. Connor clenched his fists, anger and grief warring within him. "He saved us," he said quietly. "We can't forget that." Liam placed a hand on Connor's shoulder. "We won't. But we still have a job to do." Let's finish this. With heavy hearts, the team left the ruins, knowing they had dealt a major blow to the Xoreth, but also aware that the fight was far from over. As the Eclipse rose into orbit, Delta 12 disappeared beneath layers of ice and shadow, carrying with it the memory of a brave warrior who had given everything for the mission. "You should have told us," Maria snapped. "We trusted you." Their argument carried into the main cabin, drawing the attention of the others. Connor stepped in, his usual sarcasm replaced by genuine frustration. "Enough. We're all tired and scared, but tearing each other apart won't help anyone." Liam intervened, stepping between the two women. "He's right. We can't keep fighting among ourselves. Not now. Whatever secrets anyone's holding onto, it stops here. From now on, we share everything, or we fail together." Reluctantly, Maria backed down, though her glare lingered on Alina. Hiroshi spoke up, his calm voice cutting through the tension. "Liam is correct. Trust is fragile. But without it, we are nothing. Let us move forward as one." The uneasy truce held, for now, as the Eclipse entered orbit around Delta 12. The icy moon loomed below them, its surface battered by relentless winds and blizzards. Lightning crackled across the sky, illuminating jagged cliffs and deep crevices. It was a world built for death, and the team knew the odds of survival were slim. "We'll land near the coordinates," Alina said, pointing to a cluster of ruins half buried in snow. Ancient structures jutted out of the ice, their origins unknown. "If the Xoreth have a hive mind, it'll be there." Armed and armored, the team boarded their drop pod, bracing themselves for the descent. As the pod touched down, the cold hit them like a wall. Frost clung to their visors, and the biting wind howled around them. Liam took the lead, scanning the area for signs of movement. "This place gives me the creeps," Connor muttered, clutching his weapon tightly. "Stay focused," Liam warned. "We're not alone." They moved cautiously toward the ruins, their footsteps crunching in the snow. Every shadow seemed to shift, every sound echoed unnaturally. Then, from the darkness, glowing eyes appeared, dozens of them, watching silently. "Here we go again," Maria whispered, raising her rifle. But as the first wave of Xoreth emerged, something unexpected happened. One of the creatures stopped mid-charge, tilting its head as if listening to something. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. "They're communicating," Hiroshi said, realization dawning on his face. "With the hive mind." Liam tightened his grip on his weapon. "Then we're close. Keep moving." The team pressed forward, knowing they were walking straight into the heart of the Xoreth's domain. Whatever awaited them inside those ruins, they cooled. Back on the Eclipse, the team regrouped in the main cabin, their bodies weary, but their minds racing. The destruction of the nest on Gamma 7 had given them a temporary victory, but none of them felt triumphant. Alina sat at the console, analyzing samples they'd collected from the jungle, strange spores clinging to their suits and fragments of the glowing pods. Her expression grew darker with each passing minute. "What's wrong?" Liam asked, noticing her unease. She hesitated before answering. "These spores, they're not just part of the Xoreth. They're designed to spread. If they reach other planets, they could accelerate the Xoreth's growth. This isn't just an invasion, it's a biological takeover." Maria frowned, leaning against the wall. "You're saying these things are like seeds, spreading everywhere." "Exactly," Alina replied. "And if we don't stop them now, every colony will become a breeding ground for those monsters." The gravity of the situation settled over the group, filling the room with silence. Each person wrestled with their own thoughts, trying to process the enormity of what they were facing. Connor broke the quiet by slamming his fist on the table. "So what do we do? Burn every planet we come across? That's not exactly a winning strategy." "It might be our only option," Maria shot back, her voice sharp. "If it means saving lives, I'd rather destroy a few colonies than let the Xoreth spread unchecked." Hiroshi shook his head. Destruction cannot be the answer. There must be another way. Liam rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on him. He wasn't used to making decisions that affected entire worlds, but here he was forced to choose between unthinkable options. "We need more information," he said finally. "Before we start blowing up planets, we find out where the Xoreth are coming from. Where's their home base? Their hive mind?" Elena nodded. "Delta 12. It's the closest known Deathworld to the colonies under attack. If there's a central source controlling the Xoreth, it'll be there." The mention of Delta 12 sent a chill through the team. Known as one of the most hostile environments in the galaxy, the frozen wasteland was infamous for its brutal storms and towering ice formations. Surviving long enough to gather intel would be nearly impossible, but it was their best shot. As the ship prepared to jump to Delta 12, tensions flared again. Maria confronted Elena privately, her voice low but intense. "Why didn't you tell us about the spores sooner? Back on Gamma 7, when we saw those pods, you knew what they were, didn't you?" Elena sighed, guilt written across her face. "I suspected, but I didn't want to cause panic until I was sure. Turn back now." The jungle grew denser as the team ventured further, the air thick with humidity, and the sounds of unseen creatures rustling in the shadows. Every step felt heavier, not just from the mud sucking at their boots, but also from the weight of what they had discovered. The sight of human remains fused with Xoreth tissue haunted them all, raising questions none dared to voice aloud. Were these experiments a sign of something worse to come? Or was humanity already losing this war without realizing it? Liam led the group, his eyes scanning the trees for any movement. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Stay sharp," he muttered over his shoulder. "This place doesn't feel right." Elena nodded, clutching her scanner tightly. The device beeped faintly, guiding them toward the colony's last known location. Maria walked close behind her, rifle raised, while Hiroshi brought up the rear, his katana gleaming faintly in the dim light. Connor stayed near the middle, fiddling with a small explosive device he'd been working on since they landed. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the jungle became. Strange plants pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the calls of distant wildlife grew louder and more chaotic. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shifted. Maria let out a startled cry as she sank ankle-deep into the soft earth. "It's quicksand," she shouted, struggling to pull herself free. "Don't move," Hiroshi called, rushing to her side. Using his katana, he cut down a long vine and tossed one end to her. Together, the team hauled her out, breathing a collective sigh of relief when she finally stood on solid ground again. "We can't afford mistakes like that," Liam said sharply, though there was no real anger in his voice, just concern. "We're too deep in enemy territory." Maria nodded, brushing dirt off her uniform. "Got it. No more heroics." They pressed on, moving slower now, testing each step before committing their full weight. After another hour of careful progress, they reached the edge of a clearing. In the center stood the remains of the colony, a cluster of prefabricated buildings overrun by twisted vegetation. Thick roots coiled around the structures, pulling them apart as if the jungle itself was reclaiming them. "This is it," Elena whispered, staring at the devastation. "But where are the colonists?" Before anyone could answer, a low growl rumbled through the clearing. From the shadows emerged a new breed of Xoreth, larger, faster, and covered in thick, moss-like growths that blended seamlessly with the jungle. Their glowing eyes locked onto the team, and they charged without hesitation. "Take cover," Liam yelled, diving behind an overturned piece of machinery. Maria dropped to one knee, firing precise shots that took down two of the creatures. Hiroshi darted between the attackers, his blade slicing through their limbs with deadly accuracy. Connor hurled his makeshift explosive, creating a fiery explosion that sent several Xoreth flying. But for every creature they killed, two more seemed to take its place. Elena scrambled to find higher ground, climbing onto a crumbling wall to get a better view. That's when she saw it, a massive nest tucked into the base of a nearby tree. Inside, pulsating pods glowed faintly, hinting at new horrors waiting to hatch. "Over there," she shouted, pointing. "If we destroy the nest, we might slow them down." Liam nodded, signaling for Connor to follow him. While Maria and Hiroshi held off the swarm, Liam and Connor sprinted toward the nest. The ground shook violently as larger Xoreth burst from the foliage, blocking their path. One of them lunged at Connor, knocking him to the ground. Before it could strike, Hiroshi appeared out of nowhere, driving his katana through its skull. "Go," Hiroshi urged, yanking Connor to his feet. Reaching the nest, Liam planted charges around its base, while Connor armed the detonator. "Fire in the hole," Connor yelled, pressing the button just as the rest of the team regrouped. The explosion lit up the jungle, sending chunks of alien tissue raining down. For a moment, everything fell silent. Then the surviving Xoreth began retreating into the shadows, their glowing eyes vanishing one by one. "We did it," Maria said, lowering her rifle. But Elena shook her head, her expression grim. "No, we only slowed them down. This isn't over." As they made their way back to the drop zone, Liam couldn't help but agree. The Xoreth were evolving, growing stronger with each encounter. If humanity wanted to survive, they would need more than courage. They would need answers. And those answers lay hidden somewhere deeper in the galaxy, waiting for them to uncover. But despite these small moments of camaraderie, doubts lingered. Liam couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The Xoreth were evolving, growing smarter, and their attacks were becoming more calculated. Were they truly ready for what lay ahead? When the Eclipse entered orbit around Gamma 7, the team suited up once again. The moon's dense canopy blocked most sunlight, creating an eerie twilight that stretched endlessly below them. As they descended in their drop pod, Liam stared out at the shadowy landscape, his grip tightening on his weapon. Something about this place felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. The pod landed with a thud, and the team disembarked, stepping into the humid jungle. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Strange calls echoed in the distance, though none sounded human. Belinda consulted her scanner, pinpointing the location of the colony deep within the forest. "Stay close," Liam warned, taking the lead. "And keep your eyes open." They moved cautiously, pushing through thick vines and underbrush. After an hour of hiking, they stumbled upon something unexpected. Human remains fused with Xoreth tissue. Bones protruded from grotesque, insect-like limbs, and patches of alien skin glistened in the dim light. "What is this?" Maria whispered, her voice trembling. Hiroshi knelt beside the body, examining it closely. "Experiments," he said grimly. "They are merging with humans." Connor swore under his breath. "That's messed up." Liam clenched his jaw, his mind racing. If the Xoreth were experimenting on humans, then the threat was far greater than they'd imagined. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about stopping a nightmare from spreading. "We need to keep moving," Elena said, her tone steady despite the horror around them. "The answers are here somewhere. We just have to find them." And with that, the team pressed on, deeper into the jungle, knowing full well that danger lurked in every shadow. Back aboard the Eclipse, the team gathered in the main cabin to review the data Maria had salvaged from the mining facility. Elena plugged the device into a console, and lines of code began scrolling across the screen. She worked quickly, decoding the information while the others waited anxiously. The tension in the room was thick, each person lost in their own thoughts about what they'd just faced. Finally, Elena leaned back in her chair, her face pale. "This is bad," she said, turning the screen toward the group. Maps, schematics, and logs filled the display. But one thing stood out. The Xoreth were not acting alone. These files show patterns, movements, attacks, even breeding cycles. Someone, or something, is coordinating them. Maria frowned, leaning closer to study the data. You're saying the Xoreth have a leader? Like a hive mind or something? It's possible, Elena replied. But there's more. Some of these coordinates point to places we've never seen Xoreth before. Remote planets, uninhabited moons. They're expanding, and fast. Hiroshi crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. If they are being guided, then stopping individual groups will not be enough. We must find the source. Connor let out a low whistle. So, we're talking about hunting down the big boss. Sounds like fun. Liam didn't share Connor's enthusiasm. He rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of the mission pressing down on him. Even if we find this source, how do we take it out? We barely survived that last fight. We adapt, Hiroshi said simply. We train. We prepare. And we trust each other. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, no one spoke. Trust was easier said than done. The team had come together out of necessity, but their differences still simmered beneath the surface. Maria shot Connor a glare when he made a sarcastic comment about her shooting skills, and Connor rolled his eyes in response. Even Hiroshi seemed irritated by the constant bickering. Elena stepped in before things escalated. Look, I get it. None of us chose this. But arguing isn't going to help anyone. If we want to survive, we need to focus. She's right, Liam said firmly. We don't have time for petty squabbles. Either we work together, or we fail. It's as simple as that. The group fell silent, the truth of his words sinking in. They all knew the stakes. Failure meant not just their deaths, but the potential collapse of human colonies across the galaxy. Slowly, they nodded, agreeing to put aside their differences, at least for now. As the ship traveled to their next destination, Gamma 7, a jungle-covered moon where another colony had gone dark, tensions began to ease slightly. Connor surprised everyone by offering tips on setting traps, which Maria reluctantly admitted were useful. Hiroshi spent hours practicing his sword techniques, occasionally inviting Liam to spar with him. Even Elena joined in, sharing stories from past missions to lighten the mood. The team moved cautiously through the ruins of the colony, their weapons drawn and senses on high alert. The air was thick with ash, making it hard to breathe, and the ground beneath their feet felt unstable, as if the planet itself might swallow them whole at any moment. Liam led the way, his eyes scanning every shadow for signs of movement. Behind him, Hiroshi stayed close, his ketna ready to strike. Maria and Elena followed, covering the rear while keeping watch for ambushes. Connor remained near the drop zone, setting up traps and defenses in case they needed a quick escape. As they ventured deeper into the wreckage, they found more clues about what had happened. Burn marks scarred the walls, and pieces of equipment lay scattered everywhere. It looked like the colonists had tried to fight back, but were overwhelmed. This wasn't random, Liam said, crouching to examine a broken control panel. They knew exactly where to hit. Elena nodded, her expression grim. Whoever, or whatever, is behind this wanted to cripple us. Fast. Hiroshi pointed to a set of large claw marks gouged into the metal floor. These are fresh, he said. The Xoreth were here recently. They could still be nearby. Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the ground. Rocks tumbled from above, narrowly missing Maria, who ducked just in time. We need to move, she shouted, her voice tight with urgency. The team pressed forward, navigating the treacherous terrain as quickly as they could. They soon reached the heart of the colony, a massive mining facility built into the side of a mountain. The entrance was partially blocked by fallen debris, but they managed to clear a path. Inside, the darkness swallowed them whole. Elena activated her wrist-mounted flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the sound of their footsteps echoing off the walls. Look, Maria whispered, pointing to a cluster of blinking lights on a nearby console. She stepped closer to investigate, her fingers brushing against the dusty surface. As she tapped a few buttons, the screen flickered to life, displaying fragments of data. "This might be important," she said, pulling out a small device to download the information. But before she could finish, a piercing screech filled the air. The team froze, their flashlights swinging wildly as they searched for the source. From the shadows emerged a new kind of Xoreth, larger and more menacing than the ones they'd faced earlier. Its body seemed fused with molten rock, glowing faintly in the dim light. Acidic drool dripped from its jagged teeth, sizzling as it hit the floor. "Fall back," Liam ordered, firing his weapon at the creature. The bullets ricocheted harmlessly off its armored hide. Maria yanked the data device free and sprinted toward the exit, clutching it tightly. Hiroshi leaped forward, his katana slicing through one of the creature's limbs. It roared in pain but didn't slow down, swiping at him with another claw. Elena fired her pistol, aiming for its glowing eyes, which seemed to be its weak point. The shot struck true, causing the beast to stagger. Connor's voice crackled over their comms. "I've got your backs. Get to my position." The team retreated as fast as they could, dodging falling debris and bursts of acid spit by the enraged creature. When they reached the drop zone, Connor detonated a series of explosive charges he planted earlier. The resulting blast sent shockwaves rippling through the area, collapsing part of the facility and burying the Xoreth under tons of rubble. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped outside. "Did we lose it?" Maria asked, glancing nervously at the smoldering ruins. "For now," Liam replied. "But that thing wasn't like the others. Stronger, smarter." Elena examined the data Maria had retrieved, her brow furrowed as she scrolled through the files. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "The Xoreth aren't just attacking blindly. They're evolving, and they're targeting us specifically." Liam clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "Then we'd better figure out why, and how to stop them. Because if we don't, no one else will." The weight of their mission settled heavily on all of them. For now, they had survived, but the battle ahead would only get harder. The team boarded the Eclipse, a sleek spacecraft designed for speed and stealth. As they settled into their seats, the hum of the engines filled the cabin. Liam sat near the window, staring out at the stars as the ship ascended through Earth's atmosphere. He tried to focus on the mission ahead, but his mind kept drifting back to the faces of those he'd lost in the past. Elena noticed his distant expression, but said nothing, giving him space to process. Once they were en route to Epsilon 9, Elena called everyone to the briefing room. The walls displayed holographic maps of the volcanic planet, its surface riddled with rivers of molten lava and jagged mountains. "This colony was one of our most productive mining outposts," she explained. "But communication went silent 2 days ago. We need to find out what happened and stop whatever did this." Hiroshi studied the map closely, his sharp eyes scanning every detail. "Volcanic terrain will make movement difficult," he said in a calm voice. "We must stay light on our feet." Maria nodded, adjusting the scope on her sniper rifle. "If the Xoreth are there, I'll pick them off from a distance," she said confidently. "Just give me a clear shot." Connor grinned, patting the bag of explosives strapped to his side. "And if things get messy, I've got enough firepower to level a mountain, or whatever else gets in our way." Liam listened quietly, observing the group. Each member brought something valuable to the table, but their personalities clashed almost immediately. Hiroshi's disciplined approach contrasted sharply with Connor's reckless enthusiasm. Maria rolled her eyes at Connor's jokes, while Connor teased her for being too serious. Even Elena struggled to keep the peace. "Enough," Liam finally snapped, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "We're not here to argue. If we don't work together, none of us are making it back alive." His words silenced the room. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Hiroshi bowed slightly, acknowledging Liam's authority. "He is right," Hiroshi said. "Our differences must not divide us. The mission comes first." Elena seized the opportunity to redirect the conversation. "Good. Now, let's go over the plan. We'll split into pairs once we land. Maria and I will scout ahead. Hiroshi and Lamb will cover the perimeter. Connor, you'll stay near the drop zone and set up defenses in case we need to retreat quickly. The team agreed, though Connor looked disappointed at being left behind. Fine, he muttered, but don't expect me to sit around twiddling my thumbs. Hours later, the Eclipse touched down on Epsilon 9. The air outside was thick with ash, and the ground trembled beneath their boots. The colony loomed in the distance, its metal structures half buried in volcanic debris. It was eerily quiet, save for the occasional rumble of distant eruptions. As they approached, the devastation became clear. Buildings had collapsed, vehicles lay overturned, and signs of struggle were everywhere. There were no bodies, only bloodstains and claw marks etched into the walls. Looks like the Ktoreth hit hard and fast, Maria whispered, raising her rifle. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the ruins. Shadows moved among the rubble, and glowing eyes appeared in the darkness. The team froze, weapons at the ready. From the shadows emerged the Ktoreth, hulking creatures with spiky exoskeletons and razor-sharp claws. Their movements were quick and unpredictable, making them even more dangerous. "Stay sharp," Liam shouted as the first wave charged. Maria fired from a rooftop, taking down 2 Ktoreth with precise shots. Hiroshi darted forward, his katana slicing through another creature with deadly precision. Connor launched a grenade toward a group of advancing enemies, creating a fiery explosion that sent shards of rock flying. Amid the chaos, Liam found himself face to face with a massive Ktoreth. Its breath reeked of sulfur, and its claws gleamed menacingly. He raised his weapon, firing repeatedly until the creature collapsed. When the dust settled, the team regrouped, breathing heavily. They had survived, but barely. "That was just the beginning," Elena said grimly. "There will be more where that came from." Liam wiped sweat from his brow, glancing at the others. Despite their earlier bickering, they had fought well together. Maybe, just maybe, they could pull this off. But as they prepared to search for survivors, an unsettling thought lingered in his mind. What if the Ktoreth weren't the only threat waiting for them on this Deathworld? In the year 2147, humanity had spread far beyond Earth. Colonies dotted distant planets, each one a testament to human ingenuity and courage. But life among the stars was not easy. Alien predators called the Ktoreth lurked in the shadows of Deathworlds, planets so dangerous that only the strongest could survive them. These monstrous creatures were ruthless hunters, attacking colonies without warning and leaving destruction in their wake. To protect their people, every nation on Earth trained warriors specifically for these hostile environments. Liam Carter lived alone in a quiet cabin deep in the mountains of North America. He had once been one of the best fighters his country had ever produced. Skilled with both weapons and strategy, he had faced the Ktoreth countless times and always come out alive. But that was years ago. After losing someone close during a mission, Liam walked away from it all. He wanted nothing more to do with war or Deathworlds. Now, at 42, he spent his days hiking, fishing, and trying to forget the horrors he'd seen. One chilly morning, as Liam sipped coffee on his porch, a drone descended from the sky and hovered outside his cabin. It projected a holographic message. The face of Elena Torres appeared, her dark eyes filled with urgency. "Liam, we need you," she said. Her voice was calm but firm. "The Ktoreth are back, and this time they're hitting multiple colonies at once. We can't handle this without you." Liam frowned. Elena had been his partner during his last few missions. They trusted each other completely, even when things got messy. But that didn't mean he wanted to return to the fight. "I'm done with that life," he muttered to himself, turning away from the hologram. The message continued. "This isn't like before," Elena said. "These attacks are coordinated. The Ktoreth are smarter now. If we don't stop them, they'll wipe out entire colonies. You know what's at stake." Liam sighed and set down his mug. He couldn't ignore the weight of her words. Memories of the screams, the blood, and the silence afterward flooded his mind. He hated reliving those moments, but he also knew Elena wouldn't have reached out unless the situation was dire. Against his better judgment, he decided to hear her out. Later that day, Liam arrived at a secret military base hidden beneath the Rockies. The facility buzzed with activity. Soldiers rushed about, loading supplies onto ships, while technicians monitored screens displaying data from across the galaxy. Elena greeted him near the entrance. She looked older than he remembered, with streaks of gray in her hair, but her sharp gaze hadn't changed. "Thanks for coming," she said, shaking his hand. "We've assembled a team. Fighters from different nations. Everyone brings something unique to the table." Liam raised an eyebrow. "You think throwing together a bunch of strangers is going to work?" "It has to," Elena replied. "This threat is bigger than any one nation. We either stand together or we fall apart." She led him to a briefing room where 3 others waited. First, there was Hiroshi Nakamura, a lean Japanese man with a katana strapped to his back. His reputation as a master swordsman preceded him. Next was Maria Alvarez, a fiery woman from South America known for her deadly accuracy with a sniper rifle. Finally, there was Connor O'Malley, an Irishman with a mischievous grin who specialized in explosives. As introductions were made, Liam felt a mix of skepticism and unease. These people came from different backgrounds, spoke different languages, and likely had conflicting ideas about how to handle the mission. Could they really work together? Or would their differences doom them before they even faced the Toreth? Elena handed Liam a tablet containing intel on the first colony under attack, a volcanic planet called Epsilon 9. "This is where we start," she said. "Are you ready?" Liam hesitated. He didn't want to go back to the front lines, but deep down, he knew he couldn't sit idly by while innocent lives were at risk. With a reluctant nod, he accepted the mission. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it, not just for himself, but for everyone counting on him.